Lieutenant Alex Rayner had always considered his quarters on the Interstellar Council Station a place of routine and quiet. Most days, he passed them without incident, tucked away on a narrow corridor between the council chambers and the observation deck. Today, however, something strange was about to change everything. It began with a soft chime, almost imperceptible, signaling that someone or something was trying to access his personal quarters without authorization. Alex frowned. Unauthorized access was extremely rare. The council's security systems were thorough, nearly flawless. Probably a glitch, he muttered, walking toward the door to check the control panel. The alert blinked insistently. On the small screen, the sensors showed a lifeform approaching, moving with hesitation and uncertainty. The signature was unmistakable. It was alien, and judging by the readings, it wasn't just any alien. It was a highly regulated species known for strict emotional control. Alex blinked. He had only read about such aliens in reports. Their behavior was usually precise, almost robotic in discipline. To see one moving in a pattern so inconsistent that it triggered a security alert was unprecedented. Before he could react further, the door hissed softly and opened. Alex froze. Standing there was a figure so delicate and regal that he instinctively straightened. She was humanoid, yes, but her skin shimmered with subtle iridescence, like sunlight passing through soap bubbles. Her large eyes were wide and shining, trembling slightly as if they held storms behind them. And then she did something utterly unexpected. She stumbled forward, glancing around in panic, and stepped into his quarters without waiting for permission. Hello," Alex said cautiously, stepping aside to let her pass. The alien froze in the middle of his room, a hand hovering near her chest as if to steady herself, but her other hand twisted in the air nervously. Her voice was soft, melodic, and almost quivering. I did not mean to intrude. I could not control my feelings." Did she just say she could not control her emotions? That sounded impossible. The species she belonged to was famed across the galaxy for suppressing every flicker of feeling, pride, fear, excitement, even curiosity, until it became an art form of perfect discipline. "You can't control your emotions?" he asked, trying to keep his voice neutral but failing to hide his astonishment. Her eyes darted away, then back again like lightning in a storm. "Yes, it is forbidden, but I cannot," she faltered, then took a deep breath that shook her tiny frame. "I cannot maintain composure. I am failing." Her usual grace, probably honed by strict upbringing and centuries of training, was gone. All that remained was raw, chaotic feeling spilling into the room. And yet, it was not weak. There was something striking about it, an honesty he had never seen from any council member, alien or human. "Okay," Alex said slowly, keeping his hands visible so she would not feel threatened. "Let's take this one step at a time. You're safe here. Nobody's going to punish you if you stay calm." He realized the absurdity of what he was saying even as he spoke. Calm, she was already a hurricane of emotion, but the words had some effect. Her posture softened slightly, her trembling hands lowering just a little. Her gaze fixed on him, wary but desperate. How do humans handle feelings?" she asked, almost whispering. Alex chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Well, we're not perfect, far from it, but we do our best to channel them. Laugh, cry, sing, write, work, all sorts of ways. Some of us fight, some of us make art, some of us talk to friends, but we do it honestly. We let the feelings out instead of keeping them bottled forever. And sometimes it just makes you feel lighter, less trapped. You're already doing the hardest part. You came here. You trusted me to help you. I could have ordered security to remove you or called for a council escort. Instead, I didn't. That shows you something right there. Humans, we improvise, we adapt. We try to do what's right, not just follow rules. Sometimes that works." Then she sat down hesitantly on the edge of the nearest chair, her posture stiff but beginning to soften. Alex noticed how even the smallest gestures, crossing her legs, resting her hands on her knees, were tinged with nervousness. She was trying to mirror human behavior without understanding it fully. "You will teach me?" she asked finally. "About how to be like that? I cannot hide it. Emotions controlled, not forbidden." She took a shaky breath and looked up at him. "Then you are saying that I can live with them without shame." She had been raised to hide, suppress, and deny a fundamental part of herself, and here she was discovering that it could be acceptable. You are remarkable human," she said softly. "I have never met anyone like you." Alex explained how humans expressed feelings through stories, art, music, and conversation. He even showed her a small digital recorder with examples of human music from across the galaxy. She listened, rapt, occasionally tilting her head or murmuring questions. With each passing minute, her panic ebbed, replaced by curiosity and wonder. At one point, she reached toward the recorder, touching it with tentative fingers. "Music, it makes me feel not afraid," she whispered. "See," Alex said gently, "that's a start. You're learning already." Here was a princess, feared and revered by her people for centuries, and she was struggling with something humans dealt with every day, emotion. And yet she was brave. She had come to his quarters despite the risk, despite the uncertainty. That was extraordinary. Finally, she stood, a little taller than before, though still cautious. "I must return soon," she said. "My absence will be noticed, but I wish to continue learning." "Thank you, human. I believe you have shown me hope." Yet here in his tiny quarters, he had proven the simplest truth. Human adaptability, compassion, and honesty were more powerful than fear, protocol, or tradition. And somewhere deep in his mind, he knew this encounter was only the beginning. The galaxy would notice humans soon enough, and it wouldn't be because of weapons or technology. It would be because of the very thing that made them human. Alex woke the next morning to the soft hum of the station. Outside his window, the council station orbited a pale blue gas giant, its rings glimmering in the morning light. He stretched, thinking about the previous night. Lyra's sudden appearance and raw honesty had shaken the calm routine he had taken for granted, and yet something about it excited him. Humans thrived in unpredictability, and now he had an opportunity to guide someone who had never experienced the freedom of being fully herself. Before he could finish his thoughts, the door to his quarters beeped softly. He glanced at the panel, again an unauthorized access attempt. His heart skipped a beat. Could it be her? A soft knock followed. "May I come in?" came a small, tremulous voice. Alex smiled. "Of course," he said, moving aside. Lyra stepped in, her movements cautious but slightly more composed than the night before. Her posture was still stiff, but there was a visible effort to control her nervousness without losing herself completely. I wanted to continue," she said, almost whispering, her hands clasped together. "I tried to practice what you taught me. It was difficult. I could be punished. Then decide how to act on it without letting it take over. Fear can alert you to danger, excitement can help you create, sadness can help you understand, but you choose the action. That's the control. It's not easy, and it doesn't happen overnight. But you're trying, and that's more than most of your people would ever do. They help you connect with others, inspire them, solve problems, lead. Many alien species suppress emotions to stay orderly, but that makes them predictable. Humans, we can be unpredictable, but that unpredictability makes us clever. We improvise, we adapt. In my court, we follow rules, order, predictability, control, everything. I do not know if I am brave or foolish, perhaps both." Finally, she spoke again. "I wish to practice, more learning, more control, but safely." Then we increase the challenge. Simple, controlled exposure. "This sound evokes something unfamiliar," she murmured. "Fear, joy, both. Comfort yet tension. It does not harm me." Her body mirrored the rhythm imperfectly, but there was sincerity in every motion. Alex watched closely, impressed by her determination. "Very good," he said. "See, you're expressing without losing control. That's human-style emotional management. And you're learning, that's what matters." And happiness, small like warmth in chest. I did not expect such feeling. She asked questions about human habits, customs, and emotions. Alex explained human laughter, tears, excitement, and surprise, not with abstract theory, but with examples and stories. At one point, Lyra laughed, a small, tentative sound, musical and pure. It startled her, and she quickly covered her mouth, looking embarrassed. Alex chuckled. "See, that was a perfect example. You experienced joy, expressed it, and controlled it. You did everything right. You're learning how to do the same. Then humans may be stronger than my court believes. Strength not only in power, but in emotion. That's your advantage, too, if you choose to use it." Before leaving, she turned to him and said softly, "I will return, to practice and to learn more. Perhaps one day I will teach others what you have shown me." Humanity's influence on the galaxy had just begun, not through conquest or diplomacy alone, but through guidance, understanding, and the courage to embrace what others fear. And deep inside, he knew this was only the first step in a journey that would change Lyra, her court, and perhaps the council itself. The galaxy, he thought, would soon notice humans for reasons no one could predict. And for once, that unpredictability was exactly what made them remarkable. The corridors of the royal palace were quiet, though filled with the soft hum of machinery and faint echoes of attendants moving through the halls. Princess Lyra walked carefully, her hands clasped in front of her, her steps measured and cautious. Yet beneath the surface, a storm of emotions swirled. She had spent hours with Lieutenant Alex, learning the strange and wondrous ways of human emotion. She understood now that feelings were not weaknesses to hide, but tools to use. But applying those lessons here in her own court was another challenge entirely. Her advisors, robed in silver and blue, were waiting. They were masters of discipline, trained to maintain perfect composure, as all royal counselors were expected to do. Their eyes flickered toward her as she entered, scanning her for signs of imperfection, fear, or emotional failure. A single wrong gesture could bring scandal, punishment, or shame. Lyra swallowed, her throat dry, but she lifted her chin and stepped forward. "Princess," the head advisor said, his voice measured and even, "your absence was noted. Your court awaits your guidance. Are you prepared to resume your duties?" She drew in a deep breath, recalling his words: observe, name, and express emotion in measured ways. Use them as tools, not chains. "I am prepared," she said, her voice steady, though soft. "And I wish to begin with honesty." Honesty in Lyra's court was controlled, carefully measured, and often indirect. But direct emotional expression, especially from a princess, was unprecedented. The head advisor raised an eyebrow. "Honesty, princess? Do you mean in speech or in sentiment?" "I will speak truthfully, and I will allow my feelings to guide my words appropriately." Lyra began by addressing a small problem in the council's operations, something minor that usually would be dealt with in reports and memos. But this time, she spoke with clarity and warmth, acknowledging the effort her advisors had put in while gently pointing out areas for improvement. "I understand the difficulty of managing the trade routes," she said, "and I recognize the care you have taken. Yet I feel concerned that some inefficiencies may affect our allies. It is not blame, only awareness." One counselor, known for his strict adherence to rules, whispered to another, "She feels, and yet she does not falter. Perhaps we can address it together." Some were skeptical, some curious, and some visibly impressed. Her words and demeanor had a subtle power, not through authority alone, but through authenticity. They were learning to see her differently, as both a princess and a being capable of controlled emotional leadership. During a pause, one of the younger advisors, a bright-eyed trainee, asked, "Princess, your tone, it inspires. How do you maintain composure while showing, feeling?" For centuries, they had been trained to suppress emotion, seeing it as a weakness. Here, they witnessed a princess using emotion not only without faltering, but as a tool to communicate, lead, and inspire. It was unsettling, but undeniably effective. Lyra paused, taking a deep breath. She decided to take a small risk. A slight smile touched her lips, a subtle, human-inspired gesture Alex had taught her. It was not grand, but in the rigid atmosphere of the court, it was revolutionary. The head advisor's eyes widened slightly, and a few others exchanged quiet murmurs. "This change," one whispered, "it is remarkable." She shared a personal reflection, something she had never voiced before: the fear of failing her people, the pressure of perfection, and the isolation that came with being a princess trained to suppress every flicker of feeling. Her voice wavered slightly, but she maintained control. "I have feared my own nature," she admitted. "I have hidden my feelings, believing they were dangerous. But I am learning that they can guide me if I act with care." One advisor, a senior figure known for his stern demeanor, finally nodded slightly, a rare gesture of acknowledgement. Lyra felt a spark of pride, but she remained cautious. She knew the balance was delicate, too much emotion, and it could be seen as weakness; too little, and the lesson of authenticity would be lost. "Your Highness," another advisor said cautiously, "your words have clarity. And your guidance is understood. We will follow your lead." She sat, letting herself breathe fully for the first time in hours. She thought of Alex, his calm presence and patient guidance, and she realized how far she had come in such a short time. A small chime interrupted her thoughts. She walked over to the communicator and saw Alex's face appear in a soft, holographic projection. "Good evening, Princess," Alex said, smiling. "How did the session go? You've lit a spark today. Perhaps humans understand strength differently. I wish to bring change carefully and meaningfully." Alex noticed the subtle glow of her skin, a shimmer of excitement and hope. She was changing, growing, and embracing her feelings, and in doing so, she was becoming something more than the Council had ever expected. As the hologram faded, Lyra remained in her chamber, feeling a sense of purpose she had never known. She understood now that emotion was not a trap, but a tool. She could guide, inspire, and influence her people without fear, and she had a mentor in Alex who had shown her the first steps. Outside her window, the station rotated slowly, the light of the distant stars shimmering across the horizon. Lyra knew that her journey was only beginning. She would face scrutiny, skepticism, and perhaps resistance, but she also knew that she had learned something invaluable, that controlled emotion, honesty, and courage could change not just her life, but the lives of everyone around her. And somewhere far away, in the quiet of his quarters, Alex leaned back in his chair and smiled, knowing that humanity had made its mark again. Not through force, not through technology, but through understanding, guidance, and the courage to embrace what others feared. The galaxy, he thought, was about to see the power of human influence in a way it had never imagined. The palace corridors were quiet, but the air felt charged with anticipation. Princess Lyra moved gracefully, though her heart was a storm of emotions she had yet to fully master. Today was different. Today, she would take the lessons Alex had taught her and apply them on a broader scale, beyond private chambers and training sessions. The council would see a new approach, one that combined discipline with honesty, authority with emotion. Her advisors were assembled in the main council hall, a grand chamber of pale metal and crystal light. The council was known across the galaxy for its strict rules, precise rituals, and expectation of perfect emotional suppression. They did not expect deviation, nor did they tolerate surprises. Yet today, Lyra intended to do exactly that. She stepped forward, her hands steady though her pulse raced. "Esteemed council members," she began, her voice soft but clear, "today I wish to speak honestly, not only with words but with understanding. I wish to share feelings that guide my decisions and to demonstrate how they can support our council's work." Some leaned forward with curiosity, others narrowed their eyes, skeptical. Lyra, however, felt a calm center within her, the human-inspired lessons anchoring her thoughts. "I understand the value of rules," she continued, "and the importance of order. They provide structure, safety, and predictability. Yet, emotion can also provide insight. It can guide us, help us connect, and inspire action. I have learned that controlling emotions is not the same as suppressing them. Consider the trade networks," she said, moving to an interactive display. "We have monitored patterns and efficiency, yet sometimes numbers alone do not reveal the full picture. When a human envoy expresses concern, excitement, or hope, it guides decisions in ways rules cannot. I propose we integrate observation of sentiment into our analysis, carefully and thoughtfully. Emotions," she continued, "are not chaos if we use them wisely. They provide context, motivation, and understanding. By acknowledging them, we can guide our decisions more effectively and connect with our allies more meaningfully. They suggest flexibility in thought, yet your position requires clarity and authority. How can one maintain authority while showing emotion? Humans have taught me that sometimes the greatest power lies not in domination, but in understanding. I aim to bring this approach to our council carefully, without disrupting order. Could feelings guide decisions without undermining authority?" Lyra's words planted a seed, one that curiosity began to water. She moved to another example, a recent disagreement with a neighboring system over resource allocation. Traditionally, it would have been handled purely through protocol and rigid negotiation. But Lyra had observed human diplomats, noting how empathy, patience, and measured emotional expression could achieve agreement more effectively than threat or command. "When I spoke with the envoy," she said, "I observed not only their words but their sentiment, their excitement, concern, and hope. By responding to these emotions thoughtfully, we reached a compromise that preserved our interests and strengthened relations. This is the potential of guided emotion. It does not replace reason, it enhances it." Lyra could feel the subtle shift, a ripple of understanding moving through the room. She pressed forward, carefully balancing honesty with composure. "I understand that change is difficult," she said softly, "and that our traditions are long and vital. Yet progress does not require abandoning order. It requires combining wisdom, discipline, and insight, emotional insight included. We can preserve structure while embracing the power of controlled feeling. Humans sometimes act impulsively. Some with skepticism, some with interest, but all acknowledging the possibility. Lyra felt a quiet pride. She had demonstrated that the human-inspired approach could coexist with tradition, that emotion could be powerful without being dangerous. After the meeting, Lyra returned to her private chambers. She felt a mixture of relief, excitement, and anticipation. The first step had been taken. The council had not only listened, they had seen the possibility. She had planted the spark Alex had spoken of, and now it was growing, slowly but surely. She sat at the edge of her bed, reflecting on what had happened. She thought of Alex's patient guidance, of the exercises that had helped her understand and manage her feelings. His teachings were no longer abstract. They were practical, powerful tools she could use to influence, inspire, and lead. A chime sounded softly from her communicator. She activated it, and Alex's holographic image appeared, smiling warmly. "Good evening, Princess," he said. "How did your day go?" The council, they listened, they began to understand. Some cautiously, others with curiosity. "I feel empowered and cautious. I see now how human methods provide influence without force. I wish to continue this path. The next step is to help others see that authenticity as power." "I understand," she said softly. "Humans teach that emotion is a tool, not a weakness. I can lead with it carefully and wisely. Observation, understanding, and measured action." Lights shimmered in the evening haze, and for the first time she imagined a future where her people could embrace the power of emotion, carefully guided to improve lives, strengthen alliances, and inspire hope. She felt a small thrill of anticipation. Change was difficult, uncertain, and sometimes risky, but it was possible. She had begun the journey, and each step revealed the potential of a new kind of leadership, one that balanced reason and feeling, tradition and innovation, duty and authenticity. And far away, in the quiet of his quarters, Alex leaned back in his chair, smiling at the progress he knew Lyra had made. Humanity's influence in the galaxy had begun not with conquest, not with power, but with understanding, guidance, and the courage to embrace what others feared. The council had been challenged. The princess had changed. And the galaxy, though unaware, was starting to notice the subtle, quiet force of human ingenuity and heart. Lyra closed her eyes briefly, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. She knew tomorrow would bring new tests, new challenges, and new opportunities to apply what she had learned. But tonight she had taken a step that could not be undone. She had shown the council the first glimpse of something extraordinary, the strength of guided emotion, inspired by humans and wielded wisely. The stars outside shimmered softly, and Lyra allowed herself a small, contented smile. The spark had grown. And one day, she thought, it might ignite a flame that would transform not only her court, but the entire galaxy. The council chamber was alive with quiet energy, a subtle hum of anticipation and curiosity. Princess Lyra entered with measured grace, her steps calm but purposeful. Today, she would not only guide her advisors, she would demonstrate the culmination of all she had learned from Lieutenant Alex, the human who had shown her a new way to lead. She understood now that emotion, carefully guided, was not a weakness but a source of influence and clarity. The council members, seated in their traditional formation, were watching her closely. Some faces betrayed skepticism, others mild intrigue, but all of them were alert, waiting to see how the princess would behave. For centuries, no royal had spoken with emotion in this way, and the precedent she was about to set could ripple across generations. Lyra took a deep breath, recalling every lesson Alex had taught her. Observe, name, measure, and act intentionally. Emotions were tools, not chains. Authority was strengthened by honesty and insight. Courage was shown not only by action, but by willingness to be vulnerable, controlled, and sincere. "Esteemed council members," she began, her voice steady and calm, "I come before you not only as your princess, but as a leader who has learned that strength lies in understanding, not only of facts, but of people and of feelings that guide them. Today, I wish to demonstrate a new way of leadership, one that combines tradition with insight, reason with empathy. Rules and reports provide order, but they do not always reveal intent, concern, hope, or fear. These are not weaknesses. They are tools that, if observed carefully, can guide decisions, strengthen alliances, and inspire trust." The council members' eyes flickered between each other, measuring, calculating, and beginning slowly to grasp the potential she was presenting. "Today, I will present a plan," Lyra said, moving to the central holographic display. It involves restructuring trade negotiations with neighboring systems, integrating not only quantitative data but also observation of sentiment and intent. By doing so, we ensure that our decisions are fair, effective, and sustainable, while fostering goodwill. She spoke not with fear or ambition, but with confidence, honesty, and measured emotion, a combination no advisor had seen before. "Your Highness," the head advisor finally spoke, his voice cautious but respectful, "this approach is unprecedented. You suggest integrating emotion into decision-making without compromising authority. Measured observation guides understanding. Emotion is not the enemy, it is information. By acknowledging it carefully, we can act more wisely. Authority is not diminished, it is strengthened by empathy, insight, and trust. But failure is part of learning. Humans taught me that courage lies in trying, in understanding, and in guiding wisely, even in uncertainty. By observing, reflecting, and acting deliberately, we minimize risk and maximize insight. And what of our allies? Will they trust a system guided by feeling? It does not replace it. She highlighted instances where careful observation of intent and sentiment could have improved outcomes. By acknowledging the concerns of our partners, by addressing their fears and hopes, we can create agreements that endure. And in doing so, we strengthen our influence, our reputation, and the stability of the Council. This was the reaction she had hoped for, a balance between acknowledgement and caution. She knew change would not be immediate, but this was the spark Alex had promised, the start of a transformation. After the formal presentation, Lyra invited her advisors to discuss openly. She encouraged questions, reflections, and observations. For hours, the council debated, analyzed, and explored the new approach. Lyra remained calm, guiding the conversation with subtle insight, acknowledging concerns, and gently steering the dialogue toward constructive solutions. By the end of the session, a quiet consensus emerged. While some advisors remained cautious, most recognized the value of measured emotional guidance in decision-making. Lyra had not only presented a new approach, she had demonstrated it successfully, with clarity, authority, and empathy. Exhausted but exhilarated, Lyra returned to her private chambers. She felt a sense of fulfillment unlike anything she had experienced before. The council had seen the power of controlled emotion, and she had begun to plant the seeds of lasting change. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. She activated her communicator and saw Alex's familiar holographic face. "Good evening, Princess," he said warmly. "How did your session go?" "I have begun to influence them, not by force but by guidance. You've created change quietly but firmly. Your approach will inspire others, both within your court and beyond. One day it could shape the council itself." For the first time, she felt the full potential of her position, not merely as a ruler, but as a leader who combined authority with empathy, tradition with innovation. "I understand," she said softly. "Humans show that courage, honesty, and guidance create influence greater than force or decree. I will continue this path. And remember, Princess, the galaxy is watching. Humans have always been underestimated, but our greatest strength is our adaptability, our insight, and our willingness to embrace what others fear. You've learned it well, and now others will see it through you." She imagined a future where her people embraced emotion as a tool, where diplomacy, leadership, and understanding were strengthened by insight and empathy. She felt a thrill of anticipation, knowing that each day, each choice would build toward that vision. She turned back to the communicator, her eyes bright with resolve. "Thank you, Alex, for guiding me and for showing me what humans can teach even in a single interaction. Humanity has shown the galaxy that strength lies not only in technology or weapons, but in understanding, courage, and heart." She had applied what she learned, influenced her council, and begun a transformation that would ripple through her people. Outside, the stars shimmered in silent witness. The galaxy had not yet noticed fully, but change had begun. Humanity's influence was subtle, unexpected, and powerful. It was a force born not of domination, but of guidance, insight, and the courage to embrace what others feared. Lyra sat back, letting herself breathe fully. She had learned that leadership was not merely about command. It was about understanding, connection, and careful expression of one's inner self. And she knew that humans, in their unpredictability and insight, had given her the tools to lead with courage, authenticity, and strength. As the station rotated slowly, casting gentle light across the chamber, Lyra allowed herself a final, quiet smile. The spark had grown into a steady flame. Her court, her people, and perhaps one day the galaxy would recognize the power of guided emotion, inspired by humanity. And in that moment, she understood the truth Alex had always known. Sometimes the most extraordinary power is not in weapons, authority, or rules, but in the heart, the mind, and the courage to use both wisely. The galaxy would see humans in a new light, not as chaotic or weak, but as beings capable of transforming others through understanding, empathy, and insight. Lyra's journey had begun with fear, uncertainty, and raw emotion. Now it continued with clarity, confidence, and the promise of lasting influence. Humanity had made its mark again, quietly, subtly, and with the kind of strength that could change worlds. And Princess Lyra, once timid and uncertain, had become its first brilliant testament.